All right, we're
Yeah.
live.
So let's start by thinking about, what does the hiring manager really, really want? The number one thing they want is somebody who's going to fit in and work well with other people. Right? You don't want to bring in somebody that's going to disrupt things. And that's actually even more important than the skills and ability and experiences to do the job, is I want to make sure they're going to be a good fit and work well with others. Right? Second, I want to make sure that they have the skills and ability and experiences to do the job. And of course, you all have that, and you're going to be able to convey that. And the third thing is I don't want somebody who's going to be a project. I don't want somebody who's going to be difficult. I don't want somebody who's going to require high maintenance. I got enough to do, right? So I want them to work well with others. I don't want them to be high maintenance, and I want to make sure they can do the job. So typically all we do is focus on trying to convince them that we're going to be able to do the job. And we kind of forget those other two aspects. So fortunately for you, because you were Ideas Collide, you probably both took the DISC profile.
Yes.
Oh, we did, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a great tool available to you that other people don't have. All right. And so this DISC profile can really help you to show your self-awareness. And when people are self-aware, first of all, they're a lot more convincing. When somebody just says, well, I'm great at this. Well, okay, I'm great at this. And you know, it really is, it's my number one preferred style. You know, I've got this kind of a style. I'm very high blue, right, in the disc. So I like things to be perfect, high quality, and you just can describe. And so suddenly it's more convincing, right? Because there's some science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I try to get people to do is instead of boiling the ocean and trying to prepare for every question that they're going to ask, start by developing your 20 best stories. 20 things that you did in your career, or you've done at home, or you've done when volunteering, that really describe who you are as a person. Right? And people love to hear stories. And we use a simple story technique. And it's called and, but, therefore.
Oh.
So I was working on this and things were going along well and the job was going well. But then, right, something bad happened. The customers didn't like it, a coworker left, whatever it was, but something happened. And therefore then what did I do to fix it? Right? So it's a way to tell a story in a simple format, right? The but creates the tension, the therefore resolves the tension. And then you're able, because you have your DISC profile, you're able to describe a little bit about what happened.
Hey, Tim, I noticed Ann is smiling from ear to ear.
I'm very familiar with that concept, that's why.
You are.
I've never applied it in this scenario, but I am very familiar with the story building based off of those.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah. So you're going to be able to jump right in. And you know, I think about my career is that, you know, I came down to Phoenix for this big new job. But then, you know, they decided to sell to another company and lots of people lost their job. The great thing is that's what turned me into consulting, and I've never looked back. And so then I'm telling the story. Then the second thing is to say, well, what does that say about me, right? Is that, you know, it says a lot of things. And one of it says is that I'm adaptable. I didn't let that get me down. And then I can turn to my DISC profile and say, well, what was there that made you think you could run your own business? Well, I'm a pretty high D, right? So I'm not afraid of failure. I'm okay with taking some risks, and I got a lot of self-confidence. I'm bringing 30 plus years of experience in HR. I felt pretty comfortable that I could get it done. So you've got to do the storytelling. You've developed your 20 best stories in the little simple format of and, but, therefore. Each story, you're going to tell a little bit about the attribute. It showed tenacity. It showed adaptability. it showed patience, it showed bias for action, and then you tie it to a motivator or something about your disc profile. And now the recruiter or the hiring manager goes, that's believable. I really felt like I got to know you as a candidate in a way that none of the other candidates came across. And they didn't have that nice little storytelling technique. They either gave me very short answers or they went on and on and on and on and rambled. I couldn't figure it out. And then they started telling stories that kind of seemed like, yeah, I'm the most patient person in the world and I had the highest bias action for the world. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. Your stories will all stay centered because you're basing them on the disc profile and the motivators, right? Some science. So you start with those 20 best stories, and you gotta have some stories where you failed as well. Usually I try to pick up stories like that were some time ago, so that I can talk about how since then I've improved in whatever that was. But if I'm really low in the S, I can say, well, what's your greatest weakness? I'd say, well, I'm not really good at routine. If you put me in a call center, I might last 40, 45 seconds. So that probably wouldn't be a good job for me. And I know that about myself. Well, that's a lot stronger answer than most people are given for that. So you develop these stories and now you stack the deck. Rather than boil the ocean, you stack the deck. And in your resume, your bullets are the stories.
Okay.
So they're going to ask you that's what they're going to ask you. They can see it right in your resume. They're going to say, well, tell me about this. And now you're going to start to be able to tell your stories. Let me stop there and take questions.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I've never had to like go into an interview where I tend to sometimes like ramble. So having something like this, having kind of like a narrative, that kind of helps to kind of like frame everything that I need to say and just kind of move on instead of like rambling and, adding other stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Yeah, and then you can turn your attention to things like, well, I wonder what this person's style is, right? And could I adapt to their style? Because I'm not nervous about the questions they're going to ask me because I'm going to tell them the 20 stories almost no matter what they ask. I'm going to figure out a way to tell those 20 stories because it could be about an attribute or tell me a time when. It could be any of those things. The stories fit. And when you pepper your resume with them and the bullet points, it's going to be 80% of the interview easy.
And you're saying to go ahead and kind of when you're writing your resume, I'll have to take a look at mine, but write those stories in the resume as well, right?
But write them in a way that they want to learn more.
Okay.
Right. So you don't want to tell the whole story.
Okay.
But it might be usually the bullets are supposed to be the accomplishments.
Yeah, it's
right?
the therefore part, right, Tim?
Right.
Okay.
So when you write your resume, you talk about the job and a little context, what the position was and where it was and maybe what the company did a little bit. And then the bullets are are your significant accomplishments. And those are going to be your stories. And I like to use it's just like perfume, right? It's just enough to get them to want to ask more questions and not any more than that.
Okay.
It's right. A resume is not a historical document. It's a marketing document. That's all it is.
Right.
Only purpose it exists for is to get you the interview.
And I think sometimes as a designer, I don't know how to kind of measure how well things have, worked. That's kind of like where I get stuck at. I mean, we don't get like statistics back if we're working on a marketing project, like, oh, it did great on social by X amount. So we don't really get a lot of that information. So it's kind of hard to put those kind of statistics down on a resume.
Yeah. So the one thing I would give you the advice, both Chris and Ann here, is that there's two things that you want to try to put on your resume and also in your communications. Is we talk about features and benefits, and let me give you an example for the one, Chris, that you just brought up. is that what the client is looking for, the hiring manager is looking for, is they want the accomplishments from a benefits perspective as opposed to the features. So the features would be, so to clarify the terms, the features would be 10 advertising campaigns for Intel in 10 weeks, right? That's the features, right? It's not the benefits to Intel, right? And you want to communicate in your resume and also in your communication for the stories that Tim is talking about, is it has to answer the so what. Like, so what, you did 10 of these or whatever.
Right.
What was the impact? So you may not have the social media statistics, and my guess is you probably don't need the social media statistics. What you need to do is you need to figure out what was the benefit to the client because of your level of creativity.
Okay.
If you, maybe, I don't know if you can tell it, 300% increase in their sales, or that they entered a new market. They were able to successfully enter a new market they hadn't talked about before.
Okay.
They expanded their portfolio into an unknown area and were successful, right? So those are the benefits. That's like, as a hiring manager, that's what I want to hear from you, is you've contributed at a higher level, as opposed to, I'm going to pay you X dollars an hour and you're going to pump out,
Right.
one of these per week.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I had two questions. So one, how familiar are people with the DISC profile? Because this is honestly coming to IC was the first time that I was asked to take one, and it's been used in terms, but in general, all the other places that I've worked, it seems like people are very familiar with the DISC profile. Is it mostly just to use for ourselves, or also to present to employers? Would you suggest that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of HR people are going to be familiar with the DISC profile.
Okay.
And you could check in with them and see. The insights, though, don't have to be framed in terms of the DISC profile itself. When you're able to talk about yourself, and do you remember what your colors are?
I have it somewhere. I probably should have saved it for this talk, but
We don't have it.
I'll go and I'll while you're talking to him in the background, I'll go see if I can pull it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So what you can do is just describe yourself in terms. So let's say, for example, you're a high I, and you can describe yourself as, I'm a pretty optimistic person, a pretty trusting person. I like to be with others. Interpersonally, I fit right in. Conversation is easy for me. I work well with a variety of teams. In fact, I can't really remember a time when I didn't work well with a group of other people. Now you're answering that question about, will she work well with others and fit in? Or if I was a high blue style, I might say, there's some things that the quality is really important to me, making sure that the job is done right. I'm always double and triple checking my work to make sure that it meets expectations, is accurate, and just what's required. If it was the green style, I have a big team orientation. I really like to get things done for the team. Never want to disappoint the teams. Stay as long as I need to get what's done, so that I don't let my team down. And they're important to me as people. When I ask somebody, how are you, I actually am interested. I want to know. So you can describe by example, and all that insight into what you know about yourself is amazingly sparse in the interview people that I've interviewed. For them to be able to provide me a concise story that holds together and is consistent, because you just don't find people coming wired that, I'm a real people person, so outgoing and so trusting, but I'm also highly accurate and detail oriented. Well, that's a pretty rare bird indeed. And I worry when I'm as the hiring manager, that I'm hiring a storyteller. So I want to poke at that and feel like, no, that there's some substance behind that they really do know.
Okay.
Hey, Anne, has your last name always been the same?
Titavets?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know whether it was a married name or not.
No.
When did you join?
November of 18.
Okay, so my guess is so there was another supplier that actually did the assessments before we came in,
But
and you're not showing up in our database. So my suspicion is you're in their database.
okay.
So you have not gotten a work from home report, correct?
A work from home report.
No, no. Okay. So
I don't.
so one of the things that TTI has been providing is they've taken the disk profile.
Mhm.
If you've taken it in the past, you can convert it. But since you're in another database, I can't get access to you. We can send you, and I'll send a code to everyone here. Is you can go online. They're providing it free during this period of time, and you can take it, and they'll give you an abbreviated assessment that's called a work from home report. And it talks about how do you adjust your style when you're not going into the office on a regular basis? What are the things that you have to do?
Okay.
And we've really had a lot of good feedback on that. So I can't access yours. Chris, I found yours.
Okay.
You're a high DI, so that you're a very driver influencer, get stuff done, fast paced, and so forth. And what Tim was telling you from creating kind of your stories, I don't to answer I think Ann's question, you don't have to say anything about the disc, like per the disc I am this.
Yeah.
There's no strength necessarily to calling it out.
No, right, yeah, not at all.
Not an extra benefit. Okay. I think I found the email that I got. So let me add it to the chat. See if I can put the PDF in here. I think this is it.
Oh, great.
You see it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Now, while Kevin's opening that up, the other side of it is making sure that the company is going to be a good fit for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so not being afraid to ask some probing questions. So when you think about your style, if you're say a high in a all about having to follow procedure each and every time, and not having any room to maneuver, not having any autonomy. Probably not. Probably wouldn't be a good fit for you. So I like to ask questions about the culture, and I especially like to ask questions about the leadership. And so tell me what's important here. What are your values? And usually the company will have something on their website that'll talk about what their values are. And I like to ask questions like, well, tell me how leaders bring those values to life. What are some of the things that they do? And if all what they said on the website is true, then they'll be quick to respond. Oh, Matt, he does this, and we hold these quarterly things, and with lots of recognitions and rewards because we really believe in that. If they sort of struggle, now you kind of get the indication, well, maybe somebody in PR just made those things up to make that website look well. And then I like to ask questions like, well, if you could change two things about this company right now, what would be the most important things to change? And that usually is a very interesting opportunity for them to figure out, well, what are they going to share? And they probably have never gotten that question before. And you can almost watch their body language and see if they, if they really like this company, or are they just hiring people. So the last thing you want to do is go through the process and end up in a job that where you're not a good fit, and you don't like the company and you don't like their values. And so don't be afraid to poke at that on the other side and come up with some really good questions.
Okay. That was really helpful. I love that. Thank you. I had another question on when we were talking about the and, but therefore plugging into resume bit.
Yeah.
So when I look at a job description, it's very clear to me what they're asking for. And I think a lot of job descriptions nowadays, particularly, there's a big write-up description that's maybe like 2-3 pages of
They're
exactly
terrible.
what they're looking for. How do I take my stories and seem to answer those specifics that are now written in? They're basically telling me up front that if you're not saying this, or we're specifically for these words or this kind of stories that align specifically with that, if you're doing the stories, it might not exactly align with all those specifically, or do the stories need to change for each resume that you send?
Yeah, so what oftentimes change are the keywords.
Okay.
So most people put in a section right now in their resume that's just the keywords, so that when the artificial intelligence is looking for the match, that those words are there and your resume gets through that artificial first cut through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second is what they list on job descriptions are activities. And what you want to talk about are results and achievements. So rather than describe the activities you did, it's more short on the activities, more on the results, more on the therefore.
And I think there's some basic stuff, Tim, right? That they want to know, do you know Excel and can you work with Illustrator? And
Right.
I mean, all of that stuff.
That's
Don't shortcut that. You absolutely have to have that in there. But Tim is right with the keywords. Is that the artificial intelligence? I actually work with a woman down in Maricopa County, and she's done this for 20 years. She knows all of the tools, and she's given me all of the tips. And her Kathy's recommendations is that you have to have the keywords. They have to appear at the right frequency. As well. So that's the other thing that she's learned, right? That if they were looking for a designer and then all over the description is Illustrator, 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 you better have Illustrator show up multiple times in your resume, because the artificial intelligence is going to look for that. So that's the other thing. And the other thing she has told me is that the words have to be tied. Quite often is look for those tying words, right? So a tying word might be Illustrator with 3D animation, or Illustrator with commercial copy, or whatever it is, and then make sure the pairing of the words is in there, because it's going to look for that as well.
Okay.
So,
is there somewhere where we can submit our resume, maybe a third party or for free, just to see what the tone is that is coming across? Not necessarily to put it into a certain direction, but to even see what it's reading as this frequency or keyword direction.
I would say you'd have to go to someone who does that for a living, because we are not those people. Tim, do you have? I mean, Kathy's is my go-to source. I don't even know if she's doing this anymore. I think she may have gone into retirement, because I haven't talked to her in about 6 months. But my guess is that there are people that do that for, and then there's also, I think you can go on to some of the freelancer sites, and you may find people there. So like, I don't know if you deal Upwork, or you guys are probably very familiar with those sites, right?
I think Media Bistro is another website that has professional resume writers, and I think at one point they had some people that would go ahead and give you a critique on your resume, and then they would you send it back and kind of review it, and then there's different tiers, and you can pay to have them rewrite or kind of give you guidance. So that was another one I used in the past.
Okay.
Media Bistro.
Yeah, and I think the cost to get your resume done can be pretty expensive, pretty pricey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not too worried about having it written. I have the time, and now a little
Yeah,
bit
we have the time.
to do it. So it's not an issue necessarily. I'm just
Right.
curious, just specifically with a system that's kind of AI based to see.
Yeah, to see kind of like what the computer kicks out.
Just because that's in development too. That is not a finished finite piece. So I'm just really curious where it's at in terms of how it's picking it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a level of expertise. I know a bit about it, but I wouldn't say that I'm an expert there. Now, I do want to make sure that we spend some time, Kevin, in talking about how people really do find jobs and the networking and some of the things that you ought to dive into a little bit before we use up all the time, and then leave a little time for questions.
Okay, yeah. So before I kind of dive into the techniques that I use for people that I coach that are, we call them in transition or consulting at the moment. I tell people, don't ever say that you're out of work. You just say, yeah, I'm currently consulting. Like I'm consultingmonster.com and I'm consulting jobs online. Anyway, you have to lighten up just a little bit. So I guess just a couple minutes for both of you of what are you using currently? What's the immediate need? And then I'll give you a technique that I've been using that will get you will get you to executives to talk to you quickly.
Well, I'm not too sure what you mean by immediate need.
Yeah. So what's working? What isn't working? Are you getting calls? Are you not getting calls? Are you out looking? Where are you in the stage? You would say, hey, my first thing I need to do is this. Maybe you guys don't want to work for another 3 months, and you're just, I don't know, right? I'm just trying to figure out where the playing field is.
Yeah, I'm right now. I'm still looking, and I'm in the process of just revamping my portfolio. So that is kind of time consuming. So I've been updating my website and gearing it more towards UI UX. So I'm designing building out more web screens and UI stuff. So that's kind of like where I'm at. So haven't like jumped in 100%. I've had a couple of recruiters reach out, but nothing really, finance.
And Chris, what's your sense of urgency at the moment?
I would say within the next couple of weeks, I would say.
As far as getting employed?
Yeah, or maybe at the end of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then if it doesn't happen, is it a severe burden for you?
I would like to be employed sooner than later. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. How about for you, Ann? Where are you, and what's the urgency?
I'm on probably revision 4 to 5 of my resume.
Okay.
It changes every week.
Yeah.
Practically, and then goes off that. I've been looking through LinkedIn. I've had people, friends who know my situation, my status, and connected me to someone else to see if there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of sent it along there as well to see if there's something there. The main response that I've gotten is either no response,
right,
or this is all really impressive, but we don't have anything for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even if there is an actual job posting, I still get that same response, ironically. So I understand that everyone's kind of in the waves and just kind of trying to get through the tide. So it's very hard to try to be the hero in the situation and being that like golden ticket or key that's going to help solve an issue, because it's just so unstable for everybody. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for kind of leveling out for me, so I know where you are. Let me give you a couple recommendations of things that we know that absolutely work, and I'll take just about 10 minutes or so. We can have any questions on it, but things that we know absolutely work. So first of all, you're more like, as I think probably both of you know, or anyone listening to this probably knows, is the best way to get a job is through someone else, right? The looking for postings, particularly now, it's very, very difficult. So that's the first thing. So making those connections, keeping your network warm, building your network, and so forth is going to be absolutely critical. That it has to be like a 40-hour job. And I tell people when I'm coaching people in transition, I ask them one very simple question. As at the end of the week, so let's say, hey, I want to get a job and it's the $60,000 job, right? We'll just use that as a round number, okay? So that means they're going to pay me what, 5,000 a month? Did I do the? Is that the right? Yeah, 5,000 a month. That's right. So I'm worth 5,000 a month, and so that is approximately what, $1,250 a week, $1,250 a week. Okay, so if that's what I'm worth, and I did this with one of my doctoral students because he was out of work, and he was always complaining like, oh, I don't get, nobody's calling me, big. He's just more like in the whining phase, and I said to him, his name was Carlos. I won't give you his last name. I said, Carlos, how much? What did you do this week? And if I did that work for you, well, I put on, sent 5 resumes out each day, and I made a phone call on Wednesday, and I looked at the one ads, and I worked on my resume. So I said, how much would you pay me to do that? Now he's looking for $120,000 job, so his is $10,000 a month, and he said. He said, being generous, I might give you $250, but it'd probably be more like $125. So I said, okay, so that work that you've done this week is worth $125, and you're asking me to pay you $2,500 a week. Can you see why I'm not going to hire you? So what he did is I said, you have to give, next Friday, I'm going to call you and you're going to tell me what you did that was worth $2,500. And this is what he did, is he went, and each day he was trying to get a job in the school as a teacher, as a principal. He took his research, he went and he physically met with 5 principals or superintendents of 5 different school districts, 1 per day, to show them what he had done. And Monday of the following week, one of them called him, said, I don't have a job for you, but we've been wanting to do the research like you shared with me. Can we hire you for a 3-month project? It only pays $30,000, but I can give you a $30,000 contract today. Would you like that? Okay. So what he did differently was he said, I have to do something that's equivalent to the amount of money that I'm asking people to pay me for. And I said, you have to get outside your comfort zone. In COVID environment, you might not be able to meet face to face, but you can do a video meeting with them, right? And the key is how can you get in to do that, which takes me to the second step. And what we've been using is, there's a tool within LinkedIn. You can do this manually, you don't have to do that. But we've used a tool, LinkedIn, that actually goes out and it mines the people that we want to get to. And typically, Tim and I run anywhere between 10 to 15 a day of executives that connect with us. Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, I don't know what yours is sitting at. Mine's sitting at just under 13,000 executives. Okay, which means
under 10,000.
Yours under 10, right? So we have that access that we've cultivated, right? And now the key is now I can go in and I can poke through there, and I can find, if I'm looking for someone in sustainability, right? I can put in that, and now I have 127 people I can get to as experts, right? So you need to maintain your network. You need to keep them warm. You need to continue to provide them value. So what we do is on a regular basis, we write articles, right? We tell them about new programs. We don't sell. We ask, how can we help you? We have these new reports. Would you like one? What are the challenges you have, right? And we just continually keep them warm. And by staying in their front of mind, when a job comes available, you're more likely to get a call. So that's the first step. And then the second step is, if you really want to take it to the next level, is I would ask both of you or anyone listening, is if I Googled you, what would the hit rate be? How present would you show up in social media? And how about for you?
I actually am quite dormant on social media.
You're what?
I'm quite dormant on social media.
Okay.
I think
So if I Googled you, you wouldn't get 13,000 hits on you.
I probably wouldn't get 13,000 hits, and I think a lot of me coming up is through my parents. So it's
okay. All right,
it's
Chris,
not a negative thing. It's just it's there.
Well, then when we've talked to, and Tim can jump in here, when we've talked to managers and we've asked them, when you're hiring people, what's the first thing you do? And they said, we Google them, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get your Google ratings. You have to get present. And I'm not talking about doing more, Facebook postings or whatever. You have to get present in the social media sphere. Chris, how about you? If I Googled you, how would I do? Would I?
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in social media, but it's just more of a personal thing. It's nothing. I'm not posting articles or
Yeah.
Anything like that. No, it's just a hobby.
Okay, so here's the two recommendations, and both of these are very, very doable. The first thing is you have to get visible, and I'm not talking about more Facebook posts or anything. I'm talking about posting articles, right? Writing articles, getting them posted on LinkedIn, getting them published. If you're familiar with Medium, if you're not, go Google that. Medium is a place that you can instantly get published. I do a ton of articles on Medium. And then if you have a business page or Twitter or whatever, is leverage that. You write one article. And by the way, the articles don't have to be long. Minimum 300 words, 500 to 1,000 is the norm. And write them and publish them. You can get a Medium account for $60. Are you guys familiar with Medium? Yes or no?
No.
I've seen a few articles on Medium.
Right. You can get a Medium account, $60 for the year. You can go on, you can publish your article, and it gives you an instant URL. And you can now that goes in your resume, and it'll say published author and Tidovitz, right? Chris Magana, right? So, and you should write about the stuff that people are going to hire you for. What it's like working in a small agency, making that transition, whatever it is, you write it, you put it in there, and you get it into the biosphere, right?
Could be one of your 20 best stories.
But yeah, put one of your stories in there, even better, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect. And the thing and then once you've written it, you post that same exact article on everything. You don't put a link to it, you post it. You replicate it in LinkedIn, you replicate it on Facebook. If you have a business page, you replicate it in Twitter, you replicate it on YouTube, whatever, right? So one thing gets you a ton. And what you'll find is now the Google searches will start going way, way up. And it gives you a second thing. And the second thing is, and this is what we've been doing for people to find jobs, is find someone in your network or create a connection with someone in your network who's an expert in something, right? And then you write them a personal message in LinkedIn. Dear so-and-so, director of media for Honeywell, right? I am writing an article on, and then you figure out what they're looking for, right? I'm writing an article on, the importance of social media in the military. Whatever it is, right? Something they would be interested in. I'm looking for an expert. Can I do a 15-minute Zoom call with you so that I can quote you in the article I'm about to publish? Okay. We did a test of this, and in 24 hours, we got 18 executives said, I will give you my time. By the end of the week, we had to turn it off because we had 76 people said, yes, call me and I will interview you. And here's the way the interviews go, is you have 4 basic questions, keep it to 15 minutes, so you can get some sound snippets from them. And when you publish the article, you send the article to them, which makes them look amazing. And guess what? They have networks of thousands and tens of thousands of people. What do you think they do with the article?
Sure.
Share it. Yeah.
They share it. And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you have these next level people, because you've made them look great,
Right.
sharing it. And within 24 hours, you've probably reached 50,000 people.
What if you're not that comfortable writing though, these articles?
You hire a ghostwriter.
Fine, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Hire a ghostwriter.
So
Right.
if I wanted to do something on like content marketing or social media or just animation and social media or something like that,
Yeah.
hire a ghostwriter, speak to people, post it on my LinkedIn page or.
Well, Chris, you should be writing about stuff that you have in-depth knowledge upon, right?
Okay.
So you should, there's two ways to approach it, and I've done both. The first is that you approach it from, I write the draft and I hire an editor, and they make it sound like I'm much better than I am. That's the first
Okay.
option. The second option is I write an outline. Here's the topics that I want. You go do the research, you do the ghostwriting, and I'll do the final edit, and then I post it. Either way will work. What do you think? What do you think it costs? Just the check to get a reasonable article written, like reasonably done. That for 500-word article that's written on a specific topic on animation or whatever. What? Give me a guess. You hire a ghostwriter. What do you think they're
I
going to
have
cost
no
you?
idea.
Give me a guess.
About maybe $30, $50.
Han?
100.
Yeah. So you should be able to get it for about $25.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great $25 in investment,
yeah.
right? So once again, can you imagine, hey, with my buddy Carlos, guess what? I got 4 executives interviewed this week. I've given it to the ghostwriter. They've written the article. I've edited it, and I've posted it. And by the way, their networks that they connect with is about 10,000 a piece, and that's 40,000 people. Would you pay $2,500 for that if I did that? Well, the answer is absolutely. And you just have to have that mentality to do it. And by the way, if you contact them, if I'm writing an article, I need an expert to quote, they will want to talk to you. If you call them and say, "Help, I need a job, right? I'm really good, hire me."
Yeah.
Nothing, right? Yeah. Now, here's the thing that's going to happen is you're going to have the 4 basic questions or 3 basic questions for them so you can get a snippet quote. At the end of the 15 minutes, you stop it and say, "Thank you for the time. As a graphics designer or animator or social media expert, as a gift, is there anything I can give you to look good? What are your challenges?" And guess what will happen? They go and they just spit out all the problems they're having. Oh, we can't get things on time. And these people are, oh, by the way, guess what? I've got an article on that. How about I send that to you? Or I know somebody over here. Can I make that connection for you, right? And you listen to them and then you help them out and you don't say anything. And eventually, and usually I'd say 80% of the calls, they're going to close the call of, "What are you doing right now?" Well, currently I'm doing freelance work. I'm doing this. I'm doing some writing. I'm doing this. I'm, finishing my portfolio. Bing, 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 bing. I've got a couple clients I'm working for. They're going to ask you a question of, are you available for any freelance work? Or when there's a position open, could I contact you? And the answer is yes. But the key is zero selling, no selling. You can't sell, right? You have to draw it out.
Awesome. That's great advice.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
You can do it, right? So if you need pointers on where to go for this stuff or editors or whatever, Upwork is generally a good source.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know any other ones, but the thing is
also I do a lot of just outsourcing, like my WordPress stuff where it gets a little hairy on adjusting the thing. I work with one guy in Pakistan who's been just like awesome. So
oh really?
Yeah, like $40. He saves me like plenty of hours of work. So $40 get everything done, and my website's up and running. It looks fabulous. So yeah.
So you have you have your own website, which is awesome.
I do.
And do you have one?
I'm working on it.
I don't have a website. I just have LinkedIn. I don't know what I would put on my website, to be honest, just because it's not graphic necessarily or a particular set of.
Yeah. Okay. Tim, your thoughts before we just have open questions?
Yeah, so I think I just add one more thing, and then maybe we'll take it in order of the questions. Is that you know, you talk about degrees of separation, how many degrees of separation between us knowing other people. But that is hardly a linear equation. The reality is that there's a few people that are like super connected. And they're super connected with people across all sorts of different interests. And those are the people that you want to try to get connected with. Malcolm Gladwell in The Tipping Point called them the connectors. Right, and if you read that book, you might remember his terminology. So when you're thinking about asking other people, well, who can I connect you with? You know, you might not ask, well, who do you know that just seems to be connected with everybody, that just really knows so many people? And when you ask them that question, they'll generally go, oh, I know who you talk. I know the kind of person you're talking about, and that's the person you want to get connected with because they can connect you with so many other people. So when you're out there kind of poking at this, and people will oftentimes offer, well, I'd be glad to connect you with someone, rather than just say, oh yeah, that'd be great, anybody. Don't do that. Ask specifically, well, who do you know that's really connected? And if you could add 5 of those, you know, you could add literally 50,000 connections versus 5 other people, and you might get a dozen. So just about 5 minutes left. Why don't we just open it up for whatever questions you have? And
I know this is probably a little off topic, but what if you just said, you know what, I don't want to go back to work. I want to just do my own thing and just kind of like do something completely 100% different.
Love it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Maybe I don't want to go back into the graphics. Maybe I want to do something else. And yeah.
I think that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing here, Chris, is that this is a reflective time, and if you think that there's an opportunity to make that shift, right, to make that pivot,
Mm-hmm.
you probably couldn't have picked a better time in the history of the world to do that.
Do it.
The key is that if you want to make the pivot, that has to be just like my story with Carlos is, that has to become your job. And too often what I've seen with a lot of people that are not quite sure of what they want, or they're not quite sure how to do the pivot, is they spend all of their time planning and not doing.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the year, all of a sudden they have no money coming in.
Right.
And then they're forced to go take something that
Right.
takes them away from the pivot, right? So can I ask what your thinking is? You can say no, by the way, it's okay.
No, that's fine. Yeah, before all of this happened, my sister, who's a chef, she started doing catering, and she started getting a few clients doing what's that, like consulting, but I forgot what it is. It's kind of like where meals are delivered daily and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. What's it called, Ann?
Is it meal prep, Chris?
Yes, meal prep. I don't know why I
okay.
didn't think of it. Meal prep. So she started gaining, clients, stuff like that. So she's a stay-at-home mom. She was doing this to kind of like supplement her income. And she started getting more and more clients, but she had to kind of put everything on pause. But she would like to build the business, go further with it. And, we've always talked about maybe doing something together. So I do have my food handler's degree, and I went through the whole program and stuff like that. So I may kind of maybe do it as a side kind of job, as kind of a side hustle. So I may start doing something along those lines when things start to kind of settle down a bit.
There's a great article that came out, I think it was this past week, in Harvard Business Review, and the article is about why everyone should have two jobs.
Yeah.
Right, because of the flexibility and so forth. And a lot of times the motivation and satisfaction you're not getting is you're getting some of it in one, but not all of it.
Yeah.
And then you can supplement it in the other one. And finding that nirvana job where 100% of the time is always 100% awesome, and it's 100% massive dollars, and it's 100% feeding your social needs. You know, finding that nirvana job is quite often very difficult, if not impossible. And that was kind of their position in the Hart HBR review.
Yeah, and then you find yourself in these positions
Right.
where you're laid off, and then there's no other source of income, so
Yeah.
it gets pretty stressful.
Right. Yeah, and in financial term, they call it diversification.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Well, you sounded really pumped when you said it, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, Ann. I mean, we'll talk afterwards.
Well, you sounded really pumped talking about it. So it definitely sounds like it'd be a fun subject.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it for a long time. So, we wanted to do more catering, and then, it just that kind of got sidetracked, had to get a job. So now's the time, I think, to kind of just maybe revisit that again. So
Yeah, definitely. I'd be really curious to see how she is doing right now, just because so many people can't go out.
yeah.
The meal prep would actually be doing better.
Yeah, she just doesn't want to go to the stores. She's like, my sister's like one of those terrified people of everything. So, yeah. So she has a little boy at home, so she doesn't want to get him sick or anything. So she's just, she gets a little frightened.
So I'll give you a closing tip from me, and then I'll pass it to Tim. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've worked in big, like Tim, we worked in big corporations for 30 years. Right, I worked for Transamerica Corporation first, and then I spent 18 years at Intel. But I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had a side business. I'm a musician. I've done video production. I've sold computers, right, when computers were, before computers were, right, I got into doing those kind of things. And I've always had something else going on which generated, which fed my entrepreneurial spirit. And then when I was able to retire from Intel 13 years ago, I kind of had a practice run of what I liked and what I didn't like. And I think the biggest thing I will tell you, Chris in particular, is that is the entrepreneurial thing is significantly more work than anyone would think, no matter what you do. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is you need to sit down and make sure that you have a good business plan to make sure that it's profitable. Because many of my friends who have always wanted to be entrepreneurs, they retire. My one buddy finished, he had a nice big salary from American Airlines, and he said, I always wanted to have a restaurant. And he plunked down $250,000 and bought, I forget what it was, some Japanese restaurant, and he worked 80 hours. He had 18 managers at the time. He had 50,000 turnover for the servers, and he was working 80 hours a week. And at the end, he ended up selling it for $100,000, right? So not only did he not make money, it cost him $150,000 and probably about 4 million hours of his time. And then right after that, he had a heart attack. So, so what I'm saying is make sure that it is a good business plan, and it's profitable for the amount of time and energy that you're going to put into it. Doesn't have to be massive, right, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're putting it in and you're losing money all the time.
Definitely.
Tim?
Yeah, so what I'd say is that I'll just frame it by example. I have a brother who was a big entrepreneur, and he always had the best ideas, and oftentimes they were workable. However, what he didn't have was that attention to detail. He didn't have that stay with it. He was off to the next shiny object. And so I gave him the advice a couple of times and said, Chris, you're really good at this and this and this, and you're not very good at this and that and that. You need somebody else, right? You need either off-source this or get a partner or whatever. But if you try to do it all, you're not going to be successful, right? And so I know people that are great at delivering, but they can't sell to save their lives. I know other people that can sell iced Eskimos. They can't really follow up and stay with something. So you have to just ask yourself, what does the job require? And do I have everything, or do I have resources to do the parts that either I don't want to do or I'm just not good at doing? So
Yeah. And how successful is your brother?
he married an incredibly successful woman.
There you go.
Win.
There. So a whole different strategy there,
Yeah.
right? A sugar mama, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
If all else fails.
And he was a great mom, by the way. He was an awesome mom.
Yeah.
And it all worked out really well. He did what he did well, and let somebody else do what they did well.
Yeah.
So.
And I think for now, I mean, I will still continue what I'm doing, but maybe just use that as like a part-time side kind of gig, and to, you know, I won't quit my day job. Will kind of continue, you know, finding that, you know, doing a side hustle or doing that on the side.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, let's close this out. You have our emails, right? So it's Kevin at Magna Leadership and Tim at magnaleadership.com. If there's additional times that you'd like to meet with us, we are resources for you. IDS Collide has been a really good client for us, and we've told them not only are we doing sessions for them to help them work through things, but we felt it would be appropriate for us to help the people that have helped them get successful. So when things do come back, hopefully all of you are kind of top of mind.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
let me just check in, and then we have been recording the session. You're still okay that if we share this with others?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
Chris, for you as well?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Hey, thanks for that check-in. I'm going to stop the recording.